start. Thanks for being here. My name is Handel Kashope-Wright. I'm the director for the Center for Cultural Identity and Education here in the Faculty of Education. And we're very privileged to have Dr. Neal Hall with us here today. But so we have a little something to do before we introduce him. But the event is kind of built around him. But I have to say that this is not my event. It's not really an UBC event as such. This event was put together by the very willpower, I would say, of Comfort Ero. Comfort is an amazing person who gets a lot done when it needs to be done. So, and I think we want to start, because it's Comfort who contacted me, and I had heard Dr. Hall give his poetry readings before. I remember it was something like 2 years ago, and it was sort of around Black History Month. And there were a lot of different events, but I remember that being sort of like one of the really, if not the high point, definitely one of the high points of the event. His work is really moving, but we'll get to introduce him a little bit later. For now, I do want to call on Comfort, because I think Comfort is doing something amazing. She is a community person. She's been a leader in the Nigerian community, in the African community in general, and she has a kind of artistic storytelling, performance, organization that she leads. So I think, Comfort, you want to do a short story before we get on to that also is part of the main thing, right? You're part of the main thing before we get to Dr. Neal Hall. So, Comfort, do you want to say a few words about organizing this, and then and if you want to give your story?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for coming. You are the most courageous of all of the other students. Thank you, and merci beaucoup. Professor Kashope, I should say thank you also. There was a time in February we had the Black History Month, and we were to celebrate. Also, the time I met Dr. Hall was last year in November. Some community women doing help me, I help you, they say, call it in Nigeria. They gather money together, give one person, they are like banks for each person. That person uses it to do business, then they gather and give another. So they had a party, they invited me, I went. I didn't know him, he was introduced to make a speech. And I was just busy with the person beside me talking. But when he started, oh my God, it was because I'm a writer, also I'm a teacher, and I know who can affect the audience. So I just stopped what I was doing. In fact, all the children stopped crying and talking. Everybody was listening to me. That's why I said, this is a special person. I listened to the poetry being rendered. It was like a prophet telling us what we had done and what we should do. So, in short, that's what brought about all this. And he gave cards to us on the table, and I gave mine to him, and we decided to bring him here for the Black History Month. He performed at the Surrey City Hall, and I use story. I'm a teacher. I was a teacher in my country, and French, the ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, they want us to do French as a bilingual thing. But already the children in schools have about 3-4 tribal languages. So they were running away from the French class. And I decided to use this, my own method of storytelling. The principal of that school first said, you are not following the syllabus. But when he eventually saw the outcome and the result, he let me be. And that had prompted me to go on and on and on. Anything I do, I bring it in the African traditional storytelling. It's very, very helpful to children to raise children. My daughter, who is a lawyer now, in those days when he knows her, she will just be writing whatever she likes. She will say, I don't want to take part in those storytelling. But when she was in law school in Alberta, she wrote me, oh, I had to use your stories today. So it's very, very useful, but we look at storytelling like nothing. But it's not about me here today, it's about him. So I'm going to, he's a very, very good, patient person. And I don't need to say more about that, the way he renders his poems. I'll just read, you have the programs in front of you. He received his undergraduate degree from Cornell University. After earning an MD from Michigan University, he took his surgical training in ophthalmologist at Harvard University Med School. And he was in private practice. He has left that aside. Many people will remain there. You know why. But I think in our own tradition, you will say he got a call to do what he's doing. So, and now he's a poet. And he had written these books we highlight here. Winters Are Coming Still, Nigger for Life, Where Do I Sit? And others that he had written, which are in the office. In fact, he's moving from here to Japan because they have translated one of the books into Japanese language. So Dr. Hall has reached audiences and won first place awards in many places. The ones we highlighted here, are just few of them. So we had some quotes which you can read yourself because I don't want us to waste more time. We will invite our able and poetic and talented Dr. Neal Hall. Yes.
Where do I sit? Shadowed and cast, where do I sit? Where do I fit? Where the slit in the white that lets the black in, between which lines of black and white, which longing for longitude and latitude do I reside? Around which circles that circle back around black and white and shades of gray do I fit? Where do I sit? To emit absorption, to absorb reflection. Where amongst the white is the black night of the round table I'm to set and sit my seal and shield upon which square squares things, which angle tries to rectify wrecked and tangled angles of negative and positive space I to choose my face upon. Where do I fit? Upon what, when, and where do I sit? A few weeks back, I had listened again to something I had heard many times, and this time was very profound. It stayed with me, it resonated. It resonated so much that I had to echo it. And it was something he said. And he said, all we say to America is to be true to what you said on paper. Because he said, somewhere I read, You said all men, not just white men, you've created equal with inalienable rights. Somewhere he said, I read, you said 3/5 did not exist anymore with your abolishment of slavery. And somewhere I read, you said we had the measured right against unreasonable searches and seizures. Somewhere I read, you said we had a right to fair trial by a jury of our peers, and that we were innocent until proven guilty, not beyond our absence of whiteness. And somewhere I read, you said there would be no gerrymandering nor color-coded poll taxes to undermine one man, one vote of every black man. And somewhere I read, you said on parchment, on papyrus, on your letterhead paper, we hold these truths to be self-evident. And now is their necessity. And all we've said to democracy was somewhere be true to what you said on paper. Because he said there'll be some difficult days that lie ahead. But it really didn't matter with him. He said, I've been to the mountaintop. He said he did not mind like anybody. He wanted to live a long life. Longevity had its place. He was not concerned about that. Said he just wanted to do his God's will. And that his God allowed him to go to the mountaintop. And he said he looked over and he had seen the promised land. He said that we may not get there with us, but he wanted us to know that we as a people get to the promised land. He said he was happy. He was not worried about anything. He was not fearing any man. His eyes had seen the glory of the coming of his Lord. And an angered scowl did plow democracy's brow with a lean and hungered look, and stared it upon the king with ungentle eyes. And with one shot, they shot him, dropped him there on that spot where he said, we got some difficult days that lie ahead. And all we could say to democracy was somehow, somewhere, be true to what you said on paper. He said, he said, he said. And so I went to the mountaintop. Into the mountaintop where they asked me, where they had me, when they asked me to ask not what my country could do for me, rather what I could do for my country, whilst my country was doing me. I've been to the mountaintop. There ain't nothing there but a straight drop. You see, from the hilltops of New Hampshire, from the mighty mountains of New York, to the Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, from the snow-capped Rockies to the slopes of California, there ain't no kings, no dreams, no promised land, no embracing hands, no lands of equal opportunity, no promissory note guaranteeing liberty. Ain't no freedom's ring, no we the people. My eyes can't see anything but dated niggas clinging to a nightmare, posing as their dreams. You see, you can't free nobody if your mind ain't free enough to see that their song won't sing. It's our country, 'tis of thee. It's sweet land of liberty. Land where my fathers died. Land where from every mountaintop they say, let freedom ring. Well, I've been to that mountaintop. Ain't nothing there but a straight drop. I try to stay away from names because names tend to lock you in, Labels tend to lock you into that. And I want to be free to be poured into any container and take the shape of any container of my brothers and my sisters, white, black, blue, or green. So I try to be careful about labels and names for myself. And I thought, when would a name be important to me? My name. I have pledged allegiance to a fully mast, half-blasted flag, and to the republic which stands not, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have prayed your Lord's Prayer to your God, made in your image, to deliver me from your evils, but hallowed be his name. No will for black prayers to be done on earth, nor as it is in his gated heaven. I have given you my soul. Leave me my name. After all my toils, frets, and fears, suffered 217 years, all my blood, sweat, and tears poured into every valley you've forsaken me in. I've sung my country vis-a-vis. When you said sing, I have at your twilight's last gleaming held your broad stripes and bright stars waving over land you proclaim to be free, home of the brave, not yet brave enough to let all men be free. I have given you my soul. Leave me my name. I believe your claim that Columbus, with certain navigational precision, sailed west to find India sitting in the east and discovered a continent not lost, nor looking to be found, inhabited by men not lost, nor looking to be found, and he renamed them a new name other than their own name. I have given you my soul. Leave me my name. Because if freedom comes a calling, and I have no name to be called, how will I be freed? Leave me my name. I believe you when you proclaim Jefferson professed with loving tenderness that her rape, slave rape, plantation rape, socio-economic rape was consensual. I believe your lie that Washington never told a lie, that it was a civil war fought by civil men to free uncivilized slaves that Lincoln, without fraud, presided over so that this nation could claim yet a second new birth of freedom, a second new claim to be a new nation, conceived in that liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. To these unfinished and abandoned words and work, I have given you my soul. Leave me my name. Because when freedom comes a calling, and I have no name to be called, how will I be freed? I have given you my soul. Leave me my name. And every one of us in this room carries a weight of some kind, whether it's because we're a woman, whether it's because we're black, or because of this or that. We all carry a weight. We can argue and debate whose weight weighs the most, but that misses the point. But we all have a weight, and I recognize that in all my brothers and sisters. But I want you to know about is the weight of just black. It's not the weight of black, but the immensity of being made to be just black every time white confronts me. It's the weight of white's derivative of black. A derivative definition of just black, derived in part by the social conditions created in large part by whites. It is the stress and strain of an inexact, inaccurate depiction to foster an ill-conceived, preconceived description of an ill-meaning distinction of black nature, black imagery, black sounds, the scope of black, derivatives of black derived, reconstituting me by white society to be just black. It is the immensity of immediate suspicion, the first sight of me through aqua blue seas of constricting pupils, narrowing their circular misgivings like a hangman's rope hung about my black throat. It is the weight of torque and tension and muscles and tendons, poised white flight or fright, postured to telephone militarized police who serve to protect white and red line, black free zones. It is the weighted density and white tone when switching from speaking to a white to just a black. It is the lift of an entitled nose, the flaring of nostrils, a glaring view through a narrowed view through slits and mistrusting eyelids. It is the enormous weight of hate when they clutch their Gucci handbags, the first sight of me. The locking of the car doors, the first sight of me. The collecting of the brew, frolicking in aisles of department stores, the first sight of me. The gravity of familiarity referring to me, renaming me. What's up, my man? First, they lay eyes on me. It is the insanity of N and nigger black, subhuman black, green light black, to shoot blacks in the back, concealing it, tracing the slain outlines and black and crime scene tape of plausible alibis and deniability, concealing fallen shadows of black and lines that divide, sever white society from just black, waited to be just black, a derivative of me derived, reconstituting me to be just black. I spent 2 months at the American Academy in Rome as a visiting writer. They provide you time and space to do nothing but write. And I try to find a gym wherever I go. I found one. And many of the institutions in that part of Rome were guarded by military forces, special forces. And 6 days in, on the Ides of March, I was stopped at gunpoint. Suspected of being an illegal African immigrant. And there was only 3 black men walking around in that neighborhood. And the only thing I could think of was probable cause. Probable cause. What is your probable cause? And they asked me to come forward with the guns pointed, and I would not because I didn't want to be shot by them mistaking me as making a move. But the only thing I could think of was probable cause. What is your probable cause? The face of Othello. A night without moon, the stars, the absence of white, the knife thou dost thrust. Et tu, brute, its deepest depth. The race of Othello. A melon tone that drums the monotone standard, permitting undertone armed prerogative, unreasoned warrant, my suspect. Ill-lighted I am to preponderance, that standard of criminality they once stand when night is made to stand before a day's hued judgment. Othello's face, I am this preponderance of evidence. Daywalkers need no warrant issue, except the warrant to want, to not, to see, the dead of night, rise a daylight participant in a worldwide daydream of America-like greed. When the eyes of March are judge and jurist, black is the preponderance of evidence. Whites need see for probable cause to violate black persons, black houses, black papers, black effects with unreasonable searches and seizures. The knife, thou thrust its deepest depth, the dead of night. No oath or affirmation need be other than their pledge, their lives, their fortune, their sacred honor, that this discreet dishonor, particularly describing black places, black faces, black things for search and seizure. I, the face of Othello, a fellow of the night, the preponderance of flawed evidence, whites see as probable cause when the eyes of March, 'tis judge and jurist. As stated earlier, I was raised with the idea that education was the key. I really, really worked hard to get a good education. I played football in high school. We did very well. And I played to win a scholarship to go to college. I played football in college to keep my scholarship so I could get through college. I didn't particularly like football. I didn't particularly like getting hit. But that was my way of paying for this thing that they said would help me, set me free, give me some measure of freedom, much more than I had. Opportunities, much more than I had. But I found out that the return on that investment was not as great as I thought it would be. And again, I went to Cornell. I never taken a science course, chemistry, organic chemistry, biochemistry, genetics, none of that stuff. I took it all at Cornell for the first time, pre-med major. And I got into medical school, got through that, went on to Harvard to do my training in ophthalmology. And the only say that is that I went from nigger to doctor. Because what I realized after all those years of training, the thing that mattered most, the thing that defined me most, the first sight of me, was the color of my skin. There was times when I came out of surgery operating on one of my white brothers, so I was immediately told to go mom, OR number 3. Why? When I tried to buy the building for my practice, I was told by the owner that he had an obligation not to sell to me. The obligation to his community not to sell to me. When I would go in and see a patient on the consult, the patient would ask, "Where are you taking me now?" Which meant that any black person in a white coat was transportation in the hospital, not the ophthalmologist coming to do your consult at the bedside. I would be doing a consult at the bedside. White doctors would come in and basically talk me away, thinking again that I was not. So what I realized that education is overrated for black. You would not get the return on your investment because your skin would define you first and foremost. Dr. Nigger, can you cure me without touching me with nigger hands? Can you save my life without changing my life? Can you dance off shoe while humming those Negro tunes when my white life codes blue? Can you reach inside yourself beyond the shit we put in you, past painful moments we put in you, past despair and hopelessness we put in you, and find that old black magic in you to save my life without changing all the shit we put in you. And Dr. Nigger, can you breathe in me air free of a nigger, not free from a nigger, not free enough to breathe in free air? Can you stay on the colored side of the colored line and reach across your woes without touching me with those nigger hands to restart my blue heart without changing my cold heart? Can you reach past the life we've taken from you and save my life without letting the white light pass me by? Can you, Dr. Nigger, be bigger for just 1 minute, in it for more than just a minute to save my life without taking my life? Can you cure me without touching me with those nigger hands? Can you dance soft shoe while humming Negro tunes while you save my life without changing my life when my white life codes blue? I have had the opportunity, because of poetry, literary communities around the world, to travel to many parts of the world. And I've been very grateful. One thing that I've learned from traveling around this vast planet is that it is smaller. It's much smaller than you think. We are much closer to being the same and living the same and having the same dreams and desires and methods of exploiting each other as you do all over the world. And one thing, as you may know or sense from early on, that Martin Luther King is someone that I really admire. My pillars are Gandhi, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and Michael Jackson. Martin Luther King taught me now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Gandhi said peaceful means. Malcolm X said by any means necessary. And I had to think about, oh, wait a minute. Malcolm said that out with Gandhi. How am I going to work that out within myself? And what I realized in doing that is that there's a certain amount of violence that has to be perpetrated in order to be free. No one's going to give you your freedom. You have to take it. So what is the most peaceful means of violence in order to get our freedom? And what I realized is collective economics. How we collectively spend our money to create economic violence for those who are perpetrating oppression against us. Stop buying their shit. Create that kind of economic violence. So it's my way of reconciling Gandhi and Malcolm X. What Michael Jackson taught me was that an artist must live as much in his or her art as much as the art lives in him or her. And so I try to live in my poetry as much as I had it live within me. And my whole struggle, in addition to writing, is to one day be able to stand before you all and to be 100% in this and have it be 100% in me. And that's the goal I'm moving towards. But the point I wanted to start out with is that the real problem is not the minority of bad people. That's not the problem. The real problem is the majority of the so-called good people. Appalling silence. It is not the night, but the absence of light. It is not the sweltering fervor of the desert, but the rainfall that fails to fall. It is not humanity that loses its humanity, taking, denying humanity from its fellow man, but humanity that fails to find its humanity, fighting back, to give back, to grant back humanity, seen, taken, denied its fellow man. It is not the strident clamor, nor the vitriolic voices of the bad people, but the appalling silence of those who claim to be the good people. It is not the night, but the absence of light that keeps us in the dark. And in the end, we must remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And I just have two more. My favorite is last, but two more. I always wanted to come up with a writing where you can kind of, it's a call to action. This is my attempt. It's called Blood on Our Hands. Well, there are far more sharks circling on land than in the sea, and refugees take to the seas to flee the bloodthirsty land-based feeding frenzy. We all have blood on our hands. When there's more food to eat and mouths to feed and mouths go unfed before locked granaries, we all have blood on our hands. When there's more freedom than men to be set free and far too many men still live in slavery, we all have blood on our hands. When we stand prison guards, the prisoners standing behind glass bars, they can see through, but can't get through to the other side of the lies of democracy. We all have blood on our hands when the extreme ideologies of the left hand and the right hand hands us their wrongs, when we won't wake up to stand up to kings and queens made up and public service makeup, living in a lack of luxury and royalty, trading our birthrights to walled off Wall Street traders. We all have blood on our hands when humanity demands we be the bouquet of roses rising from beneath the crack, the concrete jungle. Who will be the warrior for peace, equality, dignity, and mercy? Who will rise with me and fight? We all have blood on our hands, and love asks the question, who will stand with me and fight? Before the heartless make us lose our hearts and heart, who will stand with me and fight? Before they have our left hand at war with our right hand, who will stand with me and fight? Before another mouth goes unfed, when there's more food to eat than mouths to feed, who will stand with me and fight? Before they build another bridge to divide us one from the other, who will stand with me and fight? Before there's ever a need for a cautionary before, who amongst us will tell them no more, no more? Love asks the question. Mercy begs the answer. Who will stand with me and fight? We all have blood on our hands. Who will stand and pay love's price? Who will be the warrior for peace, equality, dignity, mercy? When we all have blood on our hands, who amongst you will stand with me and fight? I was telling my dear friend Comfort that I'm not afraid of loneliness. I spend a lot of my life alone. Loneliness is my best friend. I was telling her that sadness, I'm not afraid to be sad anymore, because much of what I write and what I think about comes out of sadness. And so I can create something out of that pool of sadness. I'm not afraid sometimes to think about giving it all up, throwing it in. It doesn't scare me. I move beyond it. Sometimes when you're at your last, you ask the question, Where's the precipice? From Jupiter, the fine lines are not linear, distinct, defined. They're blurred of contrast, purpose, perspective. From Mercury, oil can't see its flame. A stained teacup drained its cup of tea, pours its empty cup of tea in me. Sometimes, when you're at your last, you ask, where's the precipice? That edge, weary feet and toes align themselves side by side to hang beyond before the synchronized leap. This is all we lived up to be. Venus, Uranus warned us we're vicious wolves ripping at flesh beyond the hunger. We're fat cats getting fatter, storing fat beyond their need of fat. Atrocious agents of atrocities. We're bloodthirst Romans in revel, sitting below Saturn and Pluto in Colosseums to watch Rome burn. We're the white elephants in a room of gloom, pointing at the white elephant in the room. If this is all we lived up to be, where's the precipice? That edge, weary feet and toes align themselves side by side to hang beyond before their synchronized leap. This is not living. We become something other than humanity. Skin, slithering out of skin. Molt of men, sloth of mankind. There's a time to step away, a time when you want no more time to want. Time to let time slide from high above a washed up shore where the ocean roars up to your falling. If this is all we lived up to be, leave me to gravity, calm, comforting, whistling of the air on the ear on the way down. Where's the precipice? That edge, weary feet and toes align themselves side by side to hang beyond before the synchronized leap. When this is all we lived up to be, this is not living. Where's the precipice? Where's my precipice? Calm, comforting, whistling of the air on my ear on the way down. Where's my precipice? Thank you for your patience.
Well, we have some time. If you have questions, thoughts, I for one wish you had gone on.
Oh, I can read a few more if you like.
But yeah, it was wonderful. I mean, in some ways, I don't know why, in general culture, poetry went away for a while. And it's come back, a lot of it through young people, through what people are calling spoken word, etc., etc. And you're not that, but you're bringing back with all force, with irresistible force, telling us again of the beauty and the power of poetry. It's inescapable when one listens to you, and to say it's moving doesn't begin to say what one feels when one listens to your work. And your biography is quite something. For somebody to say, I will no longer be a doctor, I will no longer be a surgeon. The artist in me calls, the politics in me calls too hard for me to continue to do that. I find that fascinating. So thank you for being here and thank you for sharing. So thoughts, questions? Yes.
The altercation in Rome, how did it end? The people
Oh.
pointing the gun at you. How
Yes,
did it-
one of the military people went inside to get someone that could speak English.
Oh.
And then that person came out, translated, told them I was with the American Academy in Rome, and then they let me go. And then the Academy gave me a special identification, so if I was stopped again, I could just show them that.
That's very scary.
But what if you had been what you were suspected of being? That in itself is another problem.
Yes.
So the idea that the so-called illegal migrant is automatically a person to be a danger, not only a body to be policed, but a body to be stopped, to be threatened with elimination. That's what struck me. Not that you could then say, I am not that which you said, because you still are. You and I still are. Yes, you are. You are not quite that body, but you're close enough that you could have died.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough.
It's all that's needed.
Yes, it's all that's needed. That's it.
I probably will have, I hope I can hold myself. I need to bear up my girl. What you present is beyond what we have. What the system stands for is beyond what we see. Is dangerously beyond what we see. One thing that I have used in my own research and teaching is riding on a lion. Riding on a lion. I have a code. I hope I can not show it properly. The imagery of riding on a lion is very clear. The lion is a carnivore. It's not a camel. It's not meant to be ridden. But when ambition goes haywire, or kind of selfish whatever goes haywire, and then you get yourself actually condition the lion, however you do it, to get to the back of the lion, to ride on it. And the lion is moving like a camel. But it's a lion. It will never come down. You can't come down from that lion. Because you'll be thinking, supposing this lion finds out. Supposing this lion questions how this man or this person got in my life. So, how did I become an animal to be ridden? And they realize, but if you come down, the lion will do what? That's a very restless place to be. It's a very, very uncomfortable place to be. Point being made here is, this is not a message to free the oppressed, but it's also a message to free the oppressed. And poetry and storytelling, proverb making, which actually in our cultures, traditionally, are supposed to open the depth of our mind to read between actions, where in psychology we call it emotional intelligence, but beyond that, to be able to weigh the consequences of actions. Unfortunately, that is gone. It is really going, and so the actions that we demand in our society the oppression, the exclusion, the racism. They are hitting the oppressed, the victims, as much as they are hitting the oppressed. Unfortunately, there is no inner mind, there's no inner capacity to read through, to read between the lines, to say, this is not good. This is a problem. This is a danger. So it's freedom for the oppressed and freedom for the oppressor. I say this because now look around, there are not many white people here. Forgive there are many white people. I don't know how many of the white people, just two of them here, will say, oh, these black people will come up with this kind of thing. That is not what is happening here. No. It is actually, it's a deeper message for, it's deep. And many black people are not here because they are thinking, what change is it going to make? And so I say thank you for the courage. And like I said, we are going to be doing more of this. We just doable, like I said. It's doable to send this message that this is a message for humanity that we free the oppressed as much as the oppressor. We have a proverb back home that a child that says that the mother will not sleep in the night is also Muslim.
Thank you very much. This is really sad.
It's okay.
It's
sad.
Yes. I love that feeling. I haven't read poetry, so for that can just be so poignant to the point that it gets deep inside, but also I disagree with you in one thing.
That's all right.
Yeah, which is, I disagree in a way that I hope that all the oppressed can come up with such beautiful poetry, because we could have changed a lot in the world.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I wish that all the oppressed can be created to the point and they can create something beautiful out of their oppression. Because this is...
How is that in disagreement with you?
I would disagree with you in terms that you evoked education because this is so beautiful and so pretty. I just imagine this place full of black kids. Your poetry is so realistic, it's so sad, it's so brilliant, but also I feel like we still have hope if we have such talent. I know that we cannot change anything, but I'm a very hopeful person in terms that we come with a lot. The weight of oppression on so many people, maybe on you, is your color of your skin. Maybe for me, it has different intersections. But you are a great example for black kids to look forward, to get beyond the skin, the skin of their, the color of their skin. Not in terms of an opposition to the white. I don't care about that anymore. But to the opposition to my community itself. My purpose as an educator in terms, I define myself as a mom too. I'm not competing with the opposite side. I'm competing, and what I want to show to my kids, to the black kids, to the Muslim kids, to all the oppressed kids, you have a great potential for change. So when you say education meant nothing, and I look at this university,
I said it's overrated.
Yes, and I see this Michigan, and I see this Harvard, and I hear that beautiful poetry.
But that didn't create that.
It didn't create that.
Didn't
I know.
create that.
No,
The world
absolutely.
created that.
Your talent, it's your oppression that created that.
Ah.
But I would bring so many black kids and show them this
I
is
don't want
what-
you to just bring black kids.
Yeah, I
want
said
you to bring
and-
all my brothers and sisters.
My brothers and sisters, they are, because I'm African too. And
No, I meant all. My narratives are in black and white because my experiences are in black and white. But if we remove the black and white, we can insert female this and that we can insert different things. So it's a common oppression. But I can only tell the story from my experiences, which are in black and white. So let me do a couple of things here quickly. Much of our education is misinformation and miseducation. Much of formal education.
Yes.
So when we talk about education, we have to be very careful what we're talking about. So let me be clear. I'm talking about formal education. Okay, so there's education that you can learn outside of the classroom, but much of what we learn in academic settings is misinformation and miseducation and indoctrination. So we have to be careful, okay? We mention these things, Cornell and all that kind of stuff. That was who I thought I was. But that's not who I am. What those are now are tools that I put on my belt. Okay, that's not who I am. Now I found out who I am. Okay, so I'm got to be very careful about that. I don't want to be an example of black kids, I want to be an example of all kids. Hope, I don't believe in hope. I don't believe in hope and I don't believe in faith. We've had, Comfort and I have had long conversations about this. And the comment of courage, I don't have any courage. It's not courage. When somebody throws you off the ship, in the shore you can see in the water, what do? You start swimming for that shore. That's not courage. That's all you got. I don't have any courage. This is all I got. So, yes.
Well, before we go on to other questions, I see Neal's point and I see your point. Last night I gave a keynote address at the North Shore talking about anti-racism. I made a point like the one that you made, but I made it in much more poetic language, hardly as beautifully as you made it. Because all I said was, let's not fetishize education. Let's not romanticize education. Because people seem to think that the way to get people to understand, for example, Muslims or black people is if only we were educated, if only we knew about them. And I said that, that's a myth. People can be highly educated and highly prejudiced at the same time. In fact, for some people, the more knowledge they have, the more tools they have to exercise their prejudice.
And it's not a myth, it's a distraction.
Yeah.
It's a distraction.
But where I agree with Neal, and she made a long argument, I will make it much shorter. The very poem that you use to talk about the precipice and going off the precipice, I felt a complete contradiction. I thought, here's somebody who's not afraid to go over the precipice, but said so beautifully that I would say, if somebody said that to somebody on a precipice, that's every reason to step away from the precipice. So that's the contradiction of what it is that you delivered. And I think in some ways, that's basically the point that Neal is making. So we'll leave it at that. But anyway,
this young lady, she was very patient. We're sorry.
Thank you so much for that. I'm just grateful. So I usually have a hard time articulating.
Me too.
But yeah, so I'll really try on this one. Because it's a question I've been struggling with for the past few days or months. This back home, I'm from Kenya. And a lot of countries in the world were colonized. And because of that colonization, there was a lot of pain that was left with the people that were involved in the freedom process and also the generations after that. But then what I find sometimes is I hear people or feel as though people are using this history of being degraded and being colonized as though it's a crutch. So it's been just what they're facing now, any impediments to their development, they're saying, oh yeah, it's because we're colonized, so we can't do anything, we're under this and that. It's just this. So it's a reliance on past pains. But, so I don't know if this is everywhere. So in your, looking at your poetry, I don't know how politically correct I should be, but I feel like sometimes this idea of black pain is just resting on that history of, and also it's still happening though, but that history of
whoa, wait a minute. You just said something. You're coming now to where I'm going. You said it still happens.
It is still happening.
Then you just defeated your argument.
I know, but,
and you also, no, I'm sorry. Let me finish. Go ahead.
But then, in the case where colonialism colonialism, for example, is not exactly, they're not seeing the people sitting in the offices saying, Kenya looks like this is where this should go, this is where it should go. We can't say the colonialists are in office in Kenya right now. So I can't
Does not
say
mean
that.
they're not in power. Don't
Right.
make the assumption that colonization has stopped. It continues to this day.
So you would,
Even if it's in your mind,
Mhm.
okay? Because, once you train a dog, you don't have to tie him down. Okay, you don't have to tie him down once you train the dog. Okay? So, and that training goes from one generation to the next. That self-hate goes from one generation to the next. That belief that you can't do because you've been indoctrinated by that goes from one generation to the next. And I think the young generation has to be very careful because you're many generations away from that. And it's easy to say, oh, just stand up and get it done. And I stood up. I stood up. Harvard degree. And Mr. Neighbor, can you come and mop this room? So you've got to be very, very careful with it. The young people have to be very careful with that. None of this stuff had stopped. It takes a different form. It takes a different form.
The rider of the lion is still riding on the lion.
That's
He's
right.
still on top of the lion.
So part of what I would say about this, like how people have historicized racism. So colonialism is something that we need to historicize. So colonialism, we can talk about the physical, actual periods of colonialism, right? When people were actually there and you set up an administration, and when it ended with, that's why we call it flag independence, right? With flag independence. This is not necessarily real independence. So colonialism begins, it's a project that begins before there's actual colonization, and it continues after in forms of neo-colonialism. And that's why some people are even resisting the discourse of the post-colonial. Post-colonial has done some work, but people are now turning back to the term decolonial to say that we are still, in many ways, colonized. You probably have read him, but if you haven't read him, you should be reading him. Ngugi wa Thiong'o, right? And he wrote the book, Decolonizing the Mind, right? So, and he wrote it with the idea that, but you're right in some ways. African governments, African people need to take hold of what is going on now, but we shouldn't lose sight of how world power operates. We shouldn't lose sight of the forms of education that we get and what messages we get out of those forms of education and how to resist some of that. I just spent 6 weeks in South Africa where students are really rebelling against what they consider still a colonizing education. It's 1994, there's no more white rule, but the students there are saying, well, we're still colonized. So we have to think about how this continues, about how the end of colonization is not the end of, the end of colonization, how emancipation of the slaves never ended, the forms of racism. So it's just something to think about.
And that's what I was alluding to. You see, basically, I think Neal Hall is calling for a pivotal kind of action that says, no, I'm coming out of this mode. This is not who I am. I want to. It's freedom coming out from the cocoon, from the facade, to say, who am I? Who am I outside some degree, some professional label? Who am I? And because it is when I come out of that, I can see this oppressor. But who are you? How did the lion has to say? How did the lion has to question how he came to be made a camel, to be ridden upon. So who am I? Who am I outside of a degree, outside of a medical degree, outside of a PhD, outside of whatever? But who am I? But, originally. so that I can now confront the monster. Having said that, it is obvious that the oppressor is not relenting. So that mindfulness is what the poem is calling for.
Should I call you Neal or Dr. Hall?
Neal.
Okay, Neal.
The label's here. The tool's here. Oh my
So
God.
there were two instances that you said something either as a commentary or through your poetry that really talked to me as well. And one actually brings back the discussion we're having about bringing the black boys to the room. One of the things you said in the beginning that you or your work, you don't like to take the shape of any container. And I love that. I love that because this is pretty much also as a person of color, as an immigrant and all that, live in the US and trying to defeat all the containers that try to constrain me. To what container did they want to put you? Are you a person that has an accent, or therefore you are this? You are a person, therefore, so those containers, I think that if you free yourself of those containers, I think that the message can go through, like you said, to all of us, And another thing that you mentioned that actually has to deal with my question is that one of your goals, or perhaps your major goal, is to have the art live within you. And for me, this is very important because I also have an artistic background, music. It's basically my artistic language, but it's also through art that we transform, okay? That we change overall. So my question is sort of like, through your art, what happened? To what extent has your art changed you, or has your art made you to discover your own self?
So I think they work hand in hand. I mean, the art, I didn't get to what came first, the chicken or the egg here, okay? But in any event, one influences the other continuously to at least help me discover myself, more and more of myself. The process of creating the art is one, for me at least, is of thinking about the issue, whatever it is, thinking deeply about it and coming up with some kind of conclusion, some kind of truth that I can live with. I always say there's three things that formal education can ever do for you. She's looking at me. Is she looking at me? The three most important things is reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yes.
Those are the three most important things of education. And with those three things, you have an obligation to go out and find the truth yourself. And if you can't find the truth, you have to make up your own truth. And if you don't, you're susceptible to other people's lies. And so what I tried to do was then, this whole creative process for me is one of looking at something and trying to determine for myself what is the truth, as opposed to what is misinformation, what is indoctrination, what is miseducation. Washington lied every other day, but I grew up thinking Washington never lied. Lincoln saved the slaves? No, Lincoln did not. All Lincoln cared about was keeping the North and South together for economic reasons. He manipulated the slaves to weaken the South. He didn't care about the slaves, but I was taught that stuff. 7 years ago, our forefathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived of liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. I believed so deeply that Lincoln saved me that I remembered the Gettysburg Address as a kid, and I still know it today. And it was a lie. That's why we have to be careful about formal education. It was a lie. So education is not just that which is contained within an institution. We know institutions are, for the most part, are interested in just making money.
But how can you transform without hope? That you
Hope, because I don't need hope. What I need to do is do. Hope didn't get me through college. Doing got me through college. Hope is another way of, I believe that one of the things that's really hurting oppressed people across the world is this lack of urgency. Hope undermines urgency. I hope it gets done. I have hope. I didn't stand at the doors of Cornell on day one, freshman year, and say, oh, I hope I get to the end in 4 years. At some point, you have to move beyond hope and do. Oppressed people have to do. Hope.
But oppressed people has to dream first.
No, you gotta have enough pain. You don't dream, you gotta have enough pain. Pain is the agent of change. Pain is the major agent of change. U.S. right now is going through changes because they're in pain. I'm so glad Trump is in there. It's pain is the major motivator of change. And then you do. I pass hope. I have no faith in hope, and I have no faith in faith.
No, I think there is a misunderstanding with hope. What I meant the hope, what you're saying now. Because the pain, it created a person who wants to do something.
Yeah.
That's why I said,
But
as long as oppression created in us that urgency, this is the moment when oppression is not just to be sad about it, but is to recreate that kind of inner motivation, which means that, yes, I can change it, even though, not the institution, but it can change us even on an individual level.
But the question is, how do we change it? And so we've been taught to change it a certain way. Change hearts and minds. How can you change the heart and minds of people that have no heart and no mind to change their minds?
Remember the lines? I gave you my soul.
So how do we change? We haven't been taught how to effectively change. And we were talking about that earlier. The reason why we're all in this state is for economic reasons. You're oppressed as a woman for economic reasons. They're going to pay you, in general, less than they're going to pay a man. We can go down the line. It's all about economics. So if economics is the problem, economics has to be a major part of the solution. Okay? And when Martin Luther King in the Montgomery bus boycott stopped riding the bus, and the bus company lost money, and the white businesses downtown lost money because blacks were not going downtown, then they said, let the blacks ride anywhere on the bus. And then when we were able to ride anywhere on the bus, Martin Luther King said, God saved us. He changed hearts and minds. Missed the point. It was economics. So this is an economic battle. This is not a battle of color or gender. This is an economic war. The only color that matters here is green.
I agree.
So we've had some Q&A. Comfort, I don't know, do you want to do your story? Because I promised people if you come, there'll be Neal, is the main ingredient, but there'll also be a little storytelling from Comfort.
Yes. So there's some small snacks and food back here around the table. Perhaps we can take a 10-minute break and then hear Comfort's story. Is that okay?
Okay.
Is that all right?
No, I just the world. I'm passing. I need to go.
Okay. Do you need help with?
No, it's just, I'm just laying up.
Okay.
I just told him.
We can't be questioning. Let's go with that.
Yes.
I can't remember the context.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a little trouble. Not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, I have a cold story. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you did say that in the poem, the weight was black. In other words, yeah. Did you said something about every time you're going to confront.
You know, I lost my way to this.
So a lot of the poetry document that I listen to read in terms of that talks about differences. Okay, so I find that peace from that difference, the existence of that difference is really something that actually makes poetry happen.
I'm not sure.
So if there is no black and white, how are we going to talk about black and white politics? If we didn't recognize it,
It's not so much the recognition, recognizing it, but it's the value you put on that recognition. The different values that you put on that recognition. The different values in that person being a human being or not. The different values you put on whether you have entitled to do things and to have greater opportunities than the other. That's the problem. A red rose and a white rose, they don't fight each other. They're roses. Okay? We look for distinctions for devious reasons. We look for distinctions to set ourselves apart so that we can exploit each other for social economic gain. That's the problem. And much of that is based in fear. Fear of not being able to preserve ourselves. So we create these, we exploit these distinctions by putting values on them.
different values, different jurisdictions.
So if I came here and I handed you a white rose and a red rose, we wouldn't say, the white rose is better than the red rose. We'd say these are beautiful roses. But we don't do that.
Please have something to eat, some snacks. Some people have gone to put money in their car. We are still telling the story. African hotel based on one line. This line and Martin Luther King Jr. line about the light. Say about the light. That it's not the darkness, but the absence of light that sorts in the mind.
One day I
So there's an African folk tale and
Okay, it's in, what's your language? Okay, it's not, I'm sorry, my English. Urdu? That's okay, because it's in Urdu right now. We'll talk. We'll talk. Yeah. Okay.
But it's very powerful.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh.
So sister, you're going to tell a story?
Yes, some people have gone to the washroom and come back. We'll tell the story. I'll just tell.
And you all, I met in the elevator.
I know. I looked at you and I said, oh, yeah, something interesting, but I didn't want to ask that day.
What was it? A big
It was the post.
Oh, it's a post.
I really wanted to ask, but I did not know you. I was shy. And then it was funny because the handle told me, oh, is he really? He said, good to be a poetry. And he said, I need to send you that story.
Come in.
And I just said, I think I saw that in the love.
Oh, you said the first
In the love,
Thank you for coming. Please come in and sit down. Come in and sit down. We have some
You gotta help me with simple.
I know the news and just share it with them.
Over town, which number? Pappenhaus, too small, I do not know where to put that. Where did you go? Pappenhaus. Yeah, Franconia.
So is it good for you? Try.
Yes, not that far. About an hour, 3 miles.
Because I come Melbourne.
Yeah, because this town is a really nice time. It's a city. It has a
Yes.
so it's like what, northwest?
Oh, it's
It's not, it's 30 minutes from Dallas.
yeah, what? Then you go in southern Bavaria.
They have
It's a
an
beautiful area. Yeah, we have been in the US forever. Seriously, like when you talk about discover yourself, healing parts, doing houses for never be mess. You never
That's what I was trying to ask.
A business and there is a second.
You want to write about it? We should read more poetry.
Oh, you're already saying welcome, so. Comfort, nobody needs to. Yeah. So, welcome to those of you who just joined us. I'm sorry you missed, Dr. Neal Hall, who's a poet, world-renowned poet. He's traveled to many places in the world, and we're very grateful to have him here. But this event was organized also with the coordination with African Studies and also with the community. So it's university and community blended together. And Comfort Ero, who's a community organizer and representative, is the main person that is responsible for us being able to pull this together. And she also is a storyteller, and she has her own organization. So for us to end, we're going to have her do a very African thing, which is we learn so much from stories. We're being educated through poetry, now we'll learn a little bit through storytelling. So I'll hand you over to Comfort.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. You understand it? You are welcome. Yes. My name, like the professor said, my name is Comfort. Comfort. When you are comfortable, you remember my name. So I will tell my story. It's a very small African story. After that, the poet, big poet here, he will tell you 2 poets because we came a bit late. Okay. So the story I'm going to tell, I'm a teacher and storyteller. Tell stories. Okay? I'm going to tell you a small story from Africa because he told us something that we learn in our head, that is when there is no light. It's not the night that is worrying us. It's when there is no light. We are inside the night. We are in the darkness. later in life you will understand that language, he said. So, and it is when good people, when they see bad thing, they don't talk. They keep quiet. It's not good. But the bad people, they talk. That doesn't matter. It's good people that should talk when something is bad. So that's the story I'm telling you now. It's called the baboon judgment. Baboon, you know baboon? It's like monkey, big animal like monkey. Baboon. The baboon judgment. I'll say to you, you say answer, go. Toyo means I have a story to tell. So means tell it quickly. We are listening. Okay. Toyo. The title of the story is The Baboon's Judgment. A long time ago, the leopard, you know leopard? With spots, like tiger, but with spots. Tiger has lines, leopard has spots. A long time ago, the leopard and the jackal, it's an animal, it's like a dog, jackal in the forest. They were friends. And one day they decided to go hunting in village where people live. When they got to the edge of the village, the jackal caught a cow and the goat, and the leopard caught a goat. So the jackal was very happy and took his cow home. And the same thing with the leopard. The leopard took his goat home. They tied it on the field for them to eat. Then they went to sleep. But the leopard was not happy at all in the night and said, oh, look at the jackal's animal is bigger than my own. And he went there in the night to have a look. And when he looked, he saw not just a cow for the jackal, he saw that the cow had calved. To be calved means the cow had a baby. And then the leopard was very jealous, very angry. He took the baby of the cow, which is called a calf, took the baby and tied it to his goat. And went to the jackal and said, guess what? My goat had a calf. My goat had a baby cow. The jackal said, no, that's not right. It's only cows that have calves. And so that is mine. They started to argue and argue and argue until, like in Africa, I can be arguing on the street, people will come around and judge. So they said they decided to go along the streets in the bush, in the park, in the bush. And the first animal they got to was the gazelle. It's like antelope with horn. The gazelle, they told their story. The leopard told his story, the jackal told his story. But the gazelle was afraid of the leopard and said, well, he was shaking like this. He said, well, when I was young, only cows had calves. But now things have changed, and that is my judgment. Heaven is my witness. So they were not satisfied. They went, and again they saw the hyena. You know hyena? Laugh. Laugh a lot. It's another animal. They saw the hyena in the forest. And the hyena was very afraid of the leopard. But the leopard and the jackal told their story again. And then the hyena was looking and said, well, no ordinary goat can have a baby calf. Only the goat that belonged to the leopard can have a calf. wow. And then they were not satisfied. They went again, they saw the giraffe. You know the giraffe, long neck. Giraffe, long neck, long legs. So the giraffe also said something, said, since I was young, goats have goats, lions have lions, apple has apple, but the human beings have changed it. Today, banana and apple can have pineapple. And goat and lion can have lion goat, and so many other things. They were not satisfied. Then they saw the baboon on top of the rock eating, and then they told their story to the baboon. The baboon was eating quietly, eating worms and things. After eating, he took a piece of stone and was rubbing it. The leopard was very impatient. He said, Judge, tell us the judgment. This is our story. Tell us the judgment. The baboon said, excuse me, I've just eaten. I'm listening to beautiful music here. And the leopard said, listen everybody, this is a very stupid judge. How is he playing music on a stone? We can't hear any music. And the baboon said, please, you can hear the music on my stone. Listen very well. All the animals kept quiet. Only the leopard said, this baboon is a very, very stupid judge. He can't judge. He's stupid. He doesn't know anything. So let us go. And the baboon said, excuse me, if you cannot hear the music from the stone, neither can a goat have a calf. That is my judgment. Then that gave voice to everybody. They all shouted, yeah, can we shout? Yeah. That is very true. That's true. Because only cows can have calves. Then all the animals shouted. They kept shouting and they surrounded the leopard. When he saw that the community of animals were united against him, the leopard quickly returned the little calf and ran into the forest forever. That is the end of that story. Thank you very much. And I said it's related to the poem he told us that when the community unites, if there's a bully, you know bully? Okay, bad children in the school, they take, they take this, they can beat you, they can call you name, they can throw you down and something like that. So if everybody else unites against those bullies, it will stop. But if those people, they see you, somebody's beating you, somebody's hitting you, they just pass and go. It's not good. So that is the end of that story. Tohio. Yeah. Thank you.
That accent you want to see. And I just say,
Yeah.
for those who were here when when he did the presentation, that accent with a line that
it's not the night.
It's not the
Night, but the absence of light.
It's not the enemy, but the silence of the friends.
Yes, that is it. Thank you. All right, he's going to read 2 poems. He said, just as simple as give me my name.
Oh, I see.
you so much. Because you mentioned that maybe you have read the poem already, but when they come, you read two of them to them again, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you
I'm
so
just trying to
much.
figure out
Yeah, we
which two.
appreciate your support and
Yeah.
help.
This is called Where Do I Sit? Sometimes as an oppressed person, you don't know where you belong, where you fit in. Where do I sit? Shadowed and cast, where do I sit? Where do I fit? Where's the slit and the white that lets the black in? Between which lines of black and white? Which longing for longitude and latitude do I reside? Around which circles that circle back around black and white and shades of gray do I fit? Where do I sit to emit absorption, to absorb reflection? Where amongst the white is the black night? The round table I'm to set and sit my seal and shield upon. Which square squares things? Which angle tries to rectify wrecked and tangled angles of negative and positive space I'm to choose my face upon? Where do I fit? Upon what, when, and where do I sit? Try this. When I was in India, I was asked to write something on war. And it's called We Give. War does not take our boys and girls away. We give away our sons and daughters to warlords who do wars to be lords, and landlords sacrificing our boys and girls. Corporate lords, warlords wrapped in flags and anthems and slogans to put rapid fire guns in the hands of our sons and daughters to make martyrs of them, selling them to pay the ultimate price of life for a bigger slice of land, for warlords of land. War does not take our boys and girls away. We give away our precious pearls. We give away our sons and daughters to warlords who do wars to be lords and landlords, dressing our little boys and little girls in warrior uniforms to march uniformly to slogans, "This will defend," Army strong, power for land power, and in this cause no mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great. Duty first, this your sons and daughters to defend. War does not take our boys and girls away. We give away our sons and daughters. We give them away to anthems orchestrated by landlords, flags raised by warlords, slogans written by the hordes of predatory recruiters, recruiting our little boys, our little girls to be big, bad-ass warriors. Our little boys and little girls, war does not take them away. We give them away. We give them away to flags and anthems and slogans that put guns in the hands of our daughters and sons for land. Make sure, is it okay? I want to just make, okay.
Just, that was short.
Excuse me?
He said it's short.
Yeah, that was a short one.
Okay, I just don't want to upset people. My name,
Yes.
I pledge allegiance to a fully mast, half-blasted flag, and to the republic which stands not, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have prayed your Lord's Prayer to your God made in your image, to deliver me from your evils, but hallowed be his name. No will for black prayers to be done on this earth, nor as it is in his gated heaven. I have given you my soul. Leave me my name. After all my toils, frets, and fears, suffered 217 years, all my blood, sweat, and tears poured into every valley you forsaken me in. I've sung my country, 'tis of thee, when you said sing. I have at your twilight's last gleaming held your bright, broad stripes and bright stars. Waving over land you proclaim to be free, and home of the brave, not yet brave enough to let all men be free. I have given you my soul. Leave me my name. I believe your claim that Columbus, with certain navigational precision, sailed west to find India sitting in the east and discovered a continent not lost, nor looking to be found, inhabited by men not lost, nor looking to be found, and he renamed them a new name, other than their own name. I have given you my soul. Leave me my name. Because if freedom comes a calling, and I have no name to be called, how will I be free? Leave me my name. I believe you when you proclaim Jefferson professed with loving tenderness that her rape, slave rape, plantation rape, social economic rape was consensual. I believe your lie that Washington never told a lie, that was a civil war fought by civil men to free uncivilized slaves that Lincoln, without prop, presided over so that this nation could claim yet a second new birth of freedom, a second new claim to be a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. To these yet unfinished and abandoned words and work, I have given you my soul. Leave me my name. Because when freedom comes a calling, and I have no name to be called, how will I be free? I have given you my soul. Leave me my name.
Thank you so much. It's been a great honor to be in the same room this evening, to have our ears opened up. My name is Rosnami Desheng. I'm the director of the African Studies program, and it's been a true pleasure to be in Neal's presence over the past hour and a half. I would like to say a few closing remarks, partly to perhaps return to the debate that we had earlier about hope and action. I think one can feed the other. And the African Studies program at this university is perhaps an example of that. It's one of the few programs that exists not because an administrator created it, not because an akada like me thought, I have some spare time, let me establish the African Studies program. No, it's because university students from Africa organized collectively together and established the program de facto. And that continues to be the case about this program. It's an extremely unusual program, both within the Faculty of Arts and the university. And I think it speaks loud volumes about many of the lessons we can learn from various African cultures, because most of the students who are active in this program and continue to do, and also to hope, are drawing on very strong cultural traditions from Africa. I would like to add one hero that's already been mentioned. Neal mentioned some of his heroes, and that is Inupi Wachiongo. The reason I mentioned his name is one of the things that bind Neal and I together is our love of language. But we express our love in very different ways. He performs his love of language. My love of language is the love that a linguist has. So my own training is in linguistics, and it has given me the opportunity to study and interact with many, many speech communities across Africa, but also in this part of the world. So one of the discussions that came up today related to whether we are in a post-colonial period or a decolonial period. As those of you who have some familiarity with Canada will know, this country has been through a process of truth and reconciliation relative to its indigenous populations. And many of the challenges and struggles, many of the debates that you've raised today about oppressor and oppressed are actively being debated and acted on, not only in this country, not only in the city, but also in this very campus. And some of you may have some knowledge of some of the activities that have been going on over the past 2 years. This struggle will continue. This very famous political slogan, La lucha continua. The struggle is never finished. And I think Neal is an example of some of the hope that he instills, despite the fact that he is committed to action. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I guess we're wrapping up now. Neal, thanks for being so generous with your time and with your talent. And thank you for, even if it's in spite of your efforts, for giving us hope.
Yeah.
Because we have.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Please accept my apologies.
And thanks to all of you for being here. And I want to stress again in closing that there are a number of people I should thank. Of course, there's Yao Zhao.
Yes.
He's been an amazing person in terms of organization, but he's also a wonderful scholar and intellectual. And in some ways, I'm happy and I'm sad. He and I have worked together. I'm supervisor of his PhD, and Yao has actually defended his PhD successfully. Mention was made by Rosemary of the origins of the Africa Awareness Initiative. And that was started by Veronica Finn and the work that she did. So I want to thank her and the African Studies Program for collaborating on this. I want to thank all of you for being here. But I really need to thank Comfort. If somebody can get water out of a stone, it's Comfort. When she brought up the idea of bringing Neal, I said, well, Comfort's a great idea, but how do we do it? And bit by bit, she started to put all the pieces together. Well, if you can do this, and if I can go over there, and they can get a little bit of money, and basically she kind of brought me up along. I do a lot of organizing, but I know the limits of what things can happen and when they can't. And even when I thought it couldn't happen, here we do have a speaker. Comfort made this happen. So, and this is the beginnings, I think, of our working together, of work between community and university. I really admire the work that you do, as I said from the first time I met you, and I hope we will continue to do such work. And it was good to meet you and to meet you. And I haven't met everybody else. Some of you I know already. I want to thank Anna, who is a visiting scholar. She's originally from Brazil, teaches in the US, and she's going to be here at UBC, Dr. Anna Cruz. And you know, well, she's here not alone, but also with her husband. I hope you guys have a good stay here. So I want to thank everybody for being here, and once again, thank you, Neal, for your poetry, for your wisdom, and for the thoughts you've left us with. Aluta, continue.
Thank everybody without thanking himself. What he was doing in South Africa, it bugged him a lot with my emails. And then that's how Yao came into the picture, because he wasn't here, he brought somebody inside. And Rosemary, she was away for a long time, and then I started emailing. When I didn't get answers, I just walked into her office without announcing I was coming. So they were all very supportive, but they are very busy. Thank you. And for the people in the community, they came all the way from Surrey and what's that your place called? Cloverdale, at the border of the US and Canada. That's where he came from, that's the community. And she is from Richmond, and she's from here. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Yao. I really appreciate your help. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
So, Rosemary, let's take a few pictures with.
I can take a picture for you guys.
Okay.
Are you used to
Is it okay that students can take a picture with you? No, yeah, if not, yeah.
Sure, it depends on how much time. Sure.
You want? 有没有想你们可以？那你们一起去来给拍照。So you want to take a picture with them? I officially do it eventually, right? Okay, 随时跟他合在一起，就一起这个可以。好吧。王老师也想看。是吗？他们现在吧，他们现在是呀，对，他们是。他们先看完，然后问一下他们愿不愿意。就是说，如果不方便的话，就算了。等一下他们想。Take a picture with you or is it fine?
Okay.
You will see him tomorrow.
I'll see tomorrow, yes.
Pleasure to meet you.
I will see you here.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yes, let's definitely. No, send me your.
No, I don't get Don't forget.
Do you want to be in the picture?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, yeah, can you take with?
Yeah, I'll take a picture of you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, one. I was on the bottom.
It's mine. Hold it in an African way.
It's okay, that's good. Okay. Okay.
Look at the camera.
3, 2, 1, cheese. Okay, nice. I'll take one more. 3, 2, 1. All right.
Okay,
You guys should share with each camera.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Okay.
I don't want to steal your feathers.
So what's,
Excuse me.
the slogan we have,
Yes, very nice comment. I don't know, but there is beautiful.
that was why I rushed out.